But here, it's important to know that if I say Joe, probably talking about Joe Tacopina, I'll try to say Joe Tacopina when I'm making commentary about the attorneys. And Cartagena is Fat Joe Cartagena. So, and he's going to make this a demand for jury trial if we take it that far. So we've got Joe Tacopina, we've got Chad Siegel. You guys remember both of them from the ASAP Rocky trial. They do other cases together. And then we've got Jordan Sieve from Reed Smith. This is a different law firm here, but he's here. He's an attorney of record. So plaintiff Joseph Cartagena, as and for his complaint against defendants Terrence Dixon, Tyrone Blackburn, and the Blackburn law firm, hereby alleges as follows. Plaintiff Joseph Cartagena, who is professionally known as Fat Joe, is a world-renowned musician, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. For approximately a dozen years, and ending nearly 6 years ago, defendant Terrence Dixon, who is professionally known as TA, worked with Cartagena as a hype man, a supporting performer who increases audience engagement with interjections and chants. Cartagena compensated Dixon handsomely for his role, and Dixon never complained or expressed any dissatisfaction with his pay or other conditions of his work. Nor could he. So there's a little punch there. There's a little one of these, you guys. We've got these indicators from the Megan Jackson trial. We'll bring them up when something's a little spicy one-liner. Cartagena began working with Dixon in approximately 2006. Dixon eagerly accepted the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a part of Cartagena's team. He also accepted the generous compensation. All these words, guys, very, very intentional language. The generous compensation Cartagena paid, past tense, done, completed. And throughout their relationship, Dixon enjoyed the perquisites, I didn't know that was a word, of touring, luxurious travel, and other fringe benefits of being part of a world-renowned musicians team. The relationship ended amicably in 2019, and Dixon never raised any issues or sought any additional compensation over these past 6 years. Yes, 2019 was 6 years ago. Then something changed. In an obvious money grab, all these years later, Dixon claims that he should have been paid more. He claims, parentheses falsely, that Cartagena recently blocked him from getting outside funding for a record label, which was the last straw, quote, that caused him to dredge up decades-old supposed grievances and issues, none of which were aired contemporaneously, and more importantly, none of which are true. Thus, instead of speaking to Cartagena about his post hoc grievances, Dixon made countless posts on social media containing a torrent of wholly fabricated, grotesque, and scandalous allegations, accusing Cartagena of unspeakable acts such as pedophilia, statutory rape, and sexual assault. For example, Dixon published shocking falsehoods on Instagram, including that Cartagena, A, this is a quote, and it's all caps, was dating and having sex with a 16-year-old girl. B, flew an, quote, underage, end quote, girl, quote, across state lines and out the country. C, we got capital letters again, had a full-fledged relationship with Nikki, who was underage. And D, does Market America know they have a pedophile as they spokesperson? Question mark. So I don't know if we're adding in the question mark, but okay. Maybe this was an emoji. Maybe this was a question mark emoji. Dixon knew that his aberrant statements about Cartagena were false when he made them. And this is an element, right? So we've seen more than one judge say, you know what, Tacopina? I mean, you know what, Tyrone Blackburn? You're not like tying the defendants that you're naming to the actions that you're claiming defendant must have done. You're just naming random malicious actors. Here we already see a huge difference, right? Tacopina, Chad Siegel, Sieve, they're all this element here. The knowledge that the statements were false at the time they were made. Right? Because it's not necessarily defamation if you have a reasonable belief in what you're saying. Nope, you got to say it here. He knew they were false when he made them. He nonetheless wielded those statements as weapons in a calculated campaign to shatter Cartagena's reputation and extort him into surrendering to Dixon's outrageous financial demands. Dixon calculated incorrectly. Cartagena is steadfast and resolute. The allegations are false, and Cartagena will never, this is bold and italics, succumb to Dixon's repugnant tactics. But Dixon was not done. Frustrated by Cartagena's fortitude, Dixon hired defendant Tyrone Blackburn, who, in the words of the Honorable Judge Denise Coate of this court, and this is kind of the beautiful thing, right? Because I believe Fat Joe still resides in New York. You have this opportunity to file this in a venue where the judges, even if it's not a judge, even if it's not Judge Denise Coate, there's already awareness within this district of these other matters. And now you're naming this party, like, it's just, the judges are already going to be aware here. They're already going to be aware. Good to see Aaron. Aaron says, I know what AKA means. Co-conspirator. That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh, a hot mess. Who, in the words of the Honorable Judge Denise Coate of this court, quote, improperly files cases in federal court to garner media attention, embarrass defendants with salacious allegations, and pressure defendants to settle quickly. Sounds a little bit like the statement, Tyrone Blackburn, to XXL, litigation is always the last resort. Litigation is always the last resort. And this was the Fisher case that we looked at. And they attached it here as Exhibit A. And just a few months ago, the Honorable J. Paul Otkin of this court issued a warning to Blackburn because his, quote, filings are replete with inaccurate statements of law and, quote, full of similar irrelevant insults, misstatements, and exaggerations. And that was the Lil Rod case. We looked a little bit at that. Judge Otkin was flabbergasted by Blackburn's misconduct and stated, quote, that any licensed member of the bar would espouse such an absurd understanding of the law is not just disturbing, but shocking. Dixon, and you know what? Should we incorporate that as a little bit of spice incorporated through the words of the judge? There we go. Dixon and Blackburn started with a written demand on March 23rd, 2025 for compensation as a, quote, ghostwriter and uncredited vocalist on certain of Cartagena's songs. When this absurd and false claim did not garner the response that the defendants desired, namely an unwarranted payout from Cartagena, they sunk to much lower depths. By letter dated April 21st, so we're jumping from March 23rd to the 21st of April, which attached an intended complaint against Cartagena, Dixon, and Blackburn, threatened to file that complaint not just for unpaid wages and other compensation, but also, and with other disregard for truth or decency, false and outrageous allegations against Cartagena that have absolutely nothing to do with Dixon's purported unpaid wages, including unspeakable acts such as statutory rape, forced labor, sex trafficking, and fraud. To the contrary, Dixon and Blackburn's allegations concern third parties that Blackburn admitted are not his clients. Happily Angry Lawyer covered all of this. It was a great time. These monstrous accusations, notably lacking from the March 2025 demand letter, are conjured from thin air and once again designed to extort Cartagena to pay Dixon's and Blackburn's outrageous financial demands. Blackburn also made false statements during calls with Cartagena's counsel that he personally verified all allegations and had spoken with critical witnesses, including one of the alleged minors, who have denied speaking to Blackburn. So this is a big uh-oh. This is a big uh-oh. And when this came out, honestly, I think in April, some of the reactions to this weren't so much that it involved Fat Joe, but were people that had been watching Tyrone Blackburn because of another case he was a part of, or cases. And this is the talking point, right? He wasn't vetting his clients. So this didn't really get that big to be big of news until last week when we have this huge salacious filing against Fat Joe. But there was a bit of, there's another person saying Blackburn's not doing the stuff he's supposed to do as an attorney. Blackburn continued to threaten Cartagena on a daily basis with many evenings and late night / early morning email messages to his counsel, stating things like, quote, we will report him to Homeland Security, end quote. That was an 8:57 p.m. email on April 22nd, 2025. Oh my gosh. Now, this is a bit different. This is a bit different, guys. You know, he's sending this before they file this lawsuit. Fat Joe files this lawsuit. But after it's filed, Tyrone Blackburn's over on Instagram. You ran and filed this baseless lawsuit. But no matter how hard you try to deflect, cherry picked emails and conversations, you said you sent three. You said you sent three emails. So how do you cherry pick three total emails? And here you're saying I invited you and me to meet with the prosecutors. And when you bring in this email that you sent after it was filed, this May 1st email, after Takapina and Fat Joe filed against you, it's saying I'm following up on my previous email. What day would you like to meet? I've been emailing you for several days trying to get an answer for my invitation to meet. So you can present and I can present. We can meet there. Last three emails. And then we have quotes in this filing. We will report him to Homeland Security. That doesn't seem like an invitation. That doesn't seem like we're going to do the DoorDash. I'm going to fly in at this time. We're all going to get together and have a picnic with, prosecutors, Homeland Security, the whole shebang. We're going to have a whole thing going. This sounds different. This sounds different. Then he says, quote, playtime is over. This is a 12:15 a.m. email. Oh, so this is midnight on April 29th. So was this already? What? Hold on. When did this filing actually go through? So we're on page 4, guys. There's no timestamp up here. There's no time signature. So at midnight, Tyrone Blackburn is emailing, playtime is over, on the 29th. And then also, on April 28th, we're jumping backwards. The case is just expanded into a civil RICO case. So that was 7:27 p.m., April 28th. And that he was adding Cartagena's marketing partner to the complaint for aiding and abetting, a 9:52 email on April 26th. The threats, however, have failed to achieve their goal. Oh my goodness. Dixon's and Blackburn's conduct is thus a cold-blooded attempt to extort exorbitant sums from Cartagena by leveraging the specter of public disgrace and professional ruin. His defamatory statements accusing Cartagena of heinous crimes are devoid of any factual foundation, relying instead on the power of shock, scandal, and Cartagena's high-profile status to maximize leverage. And Blackburn's thrust to publish false allegations against Cartagena under the cloak of the judicial system are shakedown tactics masquerading as lawyering. And you know what? We're going to highlight that. And are entirely consistent with Judge. Never mind, he got to it. I was going to say we're going to highlight masquerading as lawyering because I was going to, as soon as we read the sentence, I was going to say, and we've already got more than one judge in this district sharing this opinion in different words, right? But they've expressed things that are consistent with this type of description about Tyrone Blackburn. And there you go. We've got Takapina and Siegel. Yeah. His tactics masquerade as lawyering, and it's consistent, entirely consistent with Judge Coates' statement above. So we got there. AV, wait, hold on. Good to see you, AV. Did you not see the news about Tyrone Blackburn getting arrested? This is why we're here this is why we're gathered here today, folks. Lawyer suing Fat Joe, arrested for allegedly mowing down Joe's process server. So in May, in New York City, Tyrone Blackburn allegedly runs over, backs up his car into a process server that was trying to serve him with the complaint from this case that Fat Joe filed against Terrence Dixon and Tyrone Blackburn. This is why we're here. So it's so good to see you. But yeah, if that's what you're saying, oh my God, this title, this is why we're here today. And we're looking back at this April 29th filing. It's just ridiculous. And it's like the more that comes about, the worse it looks. And right above Peach Pie says, is Blackburn a real licensed attorney in good standing? He's real. He's a licensed attorney. Is currently, he's been referred to a disciplinary committee in the Southern District of New York. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. Um, and I don't know with the Diddy case, you guys. We talked about Brianna Bongalin. She's the one that, the incident where Diddy was supposedly dangling Cassie's friend over a balcony. And we have this Perry Mason moment where your metadata shows that you were in Los Angeles and claiming that's where it happened. But metadata for Diddy and Cassie both shows that they were in New York for that weekend. They physically were not present for this thing you're alleging that Diddy did. And that witness, Brianna Bongalin, said, my attorney put that in there. My attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, put that in there. I had to fire him for false statements that I did not want him to put in the lawsuit. So, or in the statement. So, I don't know how much longer he's going to be in good standing. And big thank you, Factual Lie, guys. Factual Lie just dropped the channel to follow AV. AV has done a ton of coverage of the Karen Reed case. And I just saw you had Andrea Burkhart and Melanie Little. That was a great, great interview. And I don't remember when you did the Turtle Boy interview, but it was before this week. It was like a month ago at this point that I think you did the Turtle Boy interview. And that was a really great look about journalism and, the implications. What happens if somebody isn't paying attention to something, isn't doing the work to dig things up, and things just go under the radar? And I would highly advise, she's got a ton of Karen Reed content, but if you go back and look for her interview with Turtle Boy, it's different than just here's more about the evidence and here's our reactions to the verdict. It's a really great look at journalism, new media, and the difference it can make when eyes are on a matter and the work that people do to bring attention to really cases of injustice. So AV, good to see you, says, hello, you can't make this up. Have a great stream, Cat. Big thank you to you. Love that you always use the glasses emoji. It fits. It fits. But yeah, that's why we're here. this guy, Tyrone Blackburn. He's taking my radar off of Tony Busby for a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, and Happily Angry Lawyer says define good standing. Holy moly. Let's see. Dixon's and Blackburn's conduct is thus a cold-blooded attempt to extort exorbitant sums from Cartagena by leveraging the specter of public disgrace and professional ruin. His defamatory statements accusing Cartagena of heinous crimes are devoid of any factual foundation, relying instead on the power of shock, scandal, and Cartagena's high-profile status to maximize leverage. And Blackburn's threats to publish false allegations against Cartagena under the cloak of the judicial system are shakedown tactics masquerading as lawyering, and are entirely consistent with Judge Coates' statement above. Sorry, why am I rereading this whole thing? Sorry. Cartagena thus brings this lawsuit in the pursuit of justice and to shut down Dixon's and Blackburn's predatory plot built entirely on lies to destroy Cartagena's reputation and business for profit. So we're going to get into the parties. And luckily, they're not going to switch names, I don't believe, throughout this complaint. So we'll be able to keep it straight. Plaintiff Joseph Cartagena, known as Fat Joe. Oh, state of Florida. There we go. Defendant Terrence Dixon, professionally known as TA, is a citizen and resident of the state of New York. Defendant Tyrone Blackburn is an attorney and resident of the state of New York. He is the principal of his eponymous law firm, Defendant T.A. Blackburn Law. Blackburn's conduct described in this complaint were taken on behalf of himself, individually, and on behalf of defendant, the law firm. The law firm, Blackburn Law, is a law firm organized under the laws of the state of New York and operates its principal place of business from Brooklyn, New York. Not to be confused with the Honorable Brooklyn in our chat. This court has subject matter jurisdiction. And remember, we read earlier that that Tyrone Blackburn has issues or intentionally disregards what's required for subject matter jurisdiction. All right, he got an admonishment from a judge. We looked at that earlier in the stream. But here, This court has subject matter jurisdiction because the matter in controversy exceeds the sum or value of $75,000. So they're going to ask for more than $75,000 in damages, exclusive of interest and costs, and is between the citizens of different states. That's why we're going federal. Cartagena is a citizen of Florida. Dixon, Blackburn, and the law firm are citizens of the state of New York. Upon information and belief, no member of Blackburn law resides in or is a citizen of the state of Florida. This court, and I would say just from what I've caught of, you know, there's always a million cases being filed in the Southern District of New York. So I've heard more scenarios in that area. But when I see stuff filed in Florida, I feel like it's not as friendly of a venue for claims like this. So it happens to be a situation. I don't think they have to venue shop here. But it seems like it's probably the better choice to file in this district, especially since these judges already seem to be aware of the shortcomings of Tyrone Blackburn. This court has personal jurisdiction over Dixon, Blackburn, and Blackburn law because they're citizens of and reside in the state of New York. Venue in this district is appropriate because Dixon resides in this judicial district and a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claim herein occurred in this judicial district. So factual background. And I think we're going to get a factual background as it should be laid out. So, Cartagena is a native of the Bronx, New York. This is Fat Joe. His music career began in the early 1990s and has spanned decades. He is known as one of the most influential figures in the rap industry. Cartagena has released 11 studio albums and 5 collaborative albums to much critical acclaim. He's sold over 1.5 million albums. He's won Billboard Latin Music Awards, Latin Dance Club Play Track of the Year. That's a mouthful. And has been nominated for 5 Grammys. Cartagena is also a successful entrepreneur. He co-founded the clothing store FJ560, launched his own sneaker line, FJ560, and invested in Rewind It 10 and Up NYC. Cartagena also has countless endorsement deals, which rely on his pristine image. Cartagena is a philanthropist. His many philanthropic endeavors include, in January 2022, helping to organize a day-long fundraiser for families who were impacted by a tragic apartment fire at the Twin Parks Northwest Apartments in the Bronx. In late September 2023, Cartagena visited the Eagle Academy for Young Men in the Bronx and gifted unknowing students over $100,000 in brand new clothing to start the school year. Cartagena frequently arranges speaking engagements at public schools and with politicians to promote a wide array of community-forward initiatives, including educational advancement in low-income areas and public health awareness. Cartagena has received numerous civic awards, including the Key to New York City, and an honorary doctorate from Lehman College. He has a place on the Bronx Wall of Fame. Cartagena's biography with the Bronx Walk of Fame states that his contributions to the genre, his entrepreneurial pursuits, and his dedication to philanthropy have made him a respected figure in both the music industry and the wider community. This is kind of like background, but it would also kind of go, if you're doing all this philanthropical work, it's not just like you weren't paying somebody because you didn't have the money. I think like a little bit of an edge here is, suddenly Terrence Dixon's claiming after they stopped working together in 2019, he's now claiming in 2025 that there's monies owed. Well, Fat Joe has no problem giving money to people that didn't even work for him. So, after years of working together, Dixon fabricates claims that Cartagena engaged in unspeakable acts, including pedophilia and rape. At various times from approximately 2006 to 2019, Dixon acted as a, quote, hype man for Cartagena, assisting him on tours and concerts. In exchange for these services, Cartagena compensated Dixon handsomely. For years, their arrangement worked well and without issue. Some 4 years later, however, Dixon, in a blatant money grab, began to attack Cartagena in order to attempt to monetize Cartagena's fame and good reputation for his benefit. In 2023, Dixon initiated a campaign of public harassment against Cartagena by making and publishing countless defamatory and false statements on his public social media accounts, including his Instagram account @thatstrategy. This pattern of conduct is unfortunately par for the course for Dixon. He has repeatedly told even members of his family that if they did not stop working with Cartagena, he would put false information about Cartagena out on social media and would take all of Joe's money, presumably Fat Joe's, not Tacopina's. So we get A. Dixon falsely accuses Cartagena of sexual assault. In June 2010, Cartagena performed in Wisconsin. Following a show, a fan made allegations of, quote, inappropriate touching. Within hours, Cartagena was cleared of any wrongdoing. As explained by his attorney, Fat Joe had no contact with and never spoke to his accuser. He was questioned for a few minutes at his hotel room and was never detained by the police. For his part, Dixon never complained to Cartagena, or upon information and belief to anyone else, about the supposedly horrific acts that he witnessed. In fact, the quote inappropriate touching allegations was what? The allegation was made against Dixon, not Cartagena. What? Nevertheless, and knowing that his statements were false, on June 17th, 2023, Dixon posted a screenshot of a 2010 CNN News article on his Instagram account entitled, Rapper Fat Joe Questioned About Sexual Assault Complaint in Wisconsin. So yeah, that title doesn't say, and this is why titles can be crazy, right? Because a reader might think Fat Joe's the one named, questioned about a sexual assault complaint, probably Fat Joe being accused. Maybe that wasn't the case. Dixon's post featured a picture of Cartagena with the following caption. At Fat Joe, this rape charge was on you. I know the story and I will go into full detail. Exhibit C. Let's go take a look at that. Let's go look at the post and see what the headline looks like. Oh, you know what? I'll have to download them and we'll look at them. I did download one that we're going to look at for sure. But we'll look at them at the end. We can grab everything. Dixon again accused Cartagena of rape later that day, posting. So can you imagine, like, this is from 2010, and apparently Dixon might have been the one the complaint was lodged against. But years later, Dixon's just posting a screenshot of an article about it with a headline that one could assume and read the wrong way. And he's posting twice about it suddenly. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. Should I go into detail? 3 question marks. In October 2023, Dixon sent a series of extortionate WhatsApp messages to Cartagena's manager. Dixon sent manager a fake picture of a news headline. So it's not even real? He made up a fake news headline? This is, quote, Fat Joe statutory rape victim revealed. Dixon threatened, this is what the newspaper is going to look like. Wow, his daughter is going to be real proud of him. I'm going to tag Jordan, Nike, CNN, the the president and the vice president. Every major outlet will have this now. Think about it, just one. That was all one sentence. Oh my God. On the same day, Dixon ominously warned, the countdown is on. Tell the fat man be smart. I warned him before. And that Joe got it fucked up. I get it. Joe didn't get it yet. I'm the predator. Joe's the prey. I mean, this is kind of weird to be saying when it may have been you that was accused of predatory behavior at a concert a decade and a half ago. But okay, you can go ahead and proudly proclaim you are the predator. Dixon doubled down on his false allegations of sexual assault in a December 2024 YouTube interview, in which he accused Cartagena of sexually assaulting a woman in Wisconsin by placing his hand up her skirt. Dixon knew that these statements were false. Cartagena never sexually assaulted anyone. Authorities never charged or detained Cartagena in connection with the allegations in Wisconsin and cleared him of any involvement shortly after speaking with him. Rather, Dixon attempted to resurrect a decade-plus old false allegation and headline to support his campaign of harassment and extortion. Dixon outrageously accuses Cartagena of statutory rape. Dixon's statements escalated later in 2023. Desperate to harm Cartagena, Dixon accused him of being a pedophile. These allegations were again false, which Dixon knew when he made them. On August 31st, 2023, for example, Dixon posted about Cartagena, whom Dixon occasionally calls Lil Joey, stating, quote, Lil Joey doing his pedophile dance when he bags another 16-year-old. And I think he included these in his own filing. Or maybe they're in this one, because I remember seeing it was like one of those like animated filter videos where you can put a head on another cartoon body. Similarly, on September 9th, 2023, Dixon posted another picture and stated, Lil Joey Cap doing his, is that supposed to be crack? Doing his pedophile dance. He's diving looking for little girls, 100 emoji. On September 13th, 2023, Dixon posted, these are all caps, guys. Fat Joe, you asked me, do I take any accountability? Yes, I do, for watching you mess with underage girls, but I was minding my business. Why would you even say that? Nobody online would have known this. I mean, or maybe Fat Joe was responding online. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But it seems like this is just Dixon volunteering that somebody else was saying, are you going to take accountability for you being the one that did something? And he's volunteering it to people that otherwise wouldn't know about that. Quote, stop moving around in the streets like you wasn't messing with the underage girl. You're a pedophile. Dixon further attempted to tarnish Cartagena's professional reputation and connections by explicitly tagging Cartagena's business connections in his defamatory posts. For example, Cartagena is the president of Urban and Latino Development of Market America, a product brokerage and internet marketing company. On December 6, 2023, Dixon posted about Cartagena, tagging Market America's Instagram account and writing, does Market America know they have a pedophile as their spokesperson? Dixon's aberrant defamatory conduct continued throughout 2024. Also, I see Pam is here. Pam Entertainment TV. She says, this case seems too messy and not in a funny way. It just seems like and I have questions about Dixon, but there are other people that Tyrone Blackburn has represented where I haven't I don't have an eyebrow raised at the client's claims necessarily. And what kind of service is that to someone that has valid claims to bring forward? Like, it's just such a horrible thing to use somebody as a vehicle, either to make headlines with the lawsuit or to get a settlement before it actually goes into the court system. So, yeah, it's messy. And then we have an arrest today, like, for avoiding service. Like, if this is the other way around, Tyrone Blackburn would be having a field day on the internet right now. And QB says this is too much. Also, AV got out of here, but you guys make sure you're checking out AV again. A ton of Karen Reed content. A long time ago, she did coverage on the Little Rod lawsuit too. So if you want more Tyrone Blackburn content, we're gonna call it content. Tyrone Blackburn's filings. AV did a whole breakdown of the Little Rod filing. And Phoenix Rising says AV in the house, love women supporting one another. Heck yeah, always love AV. She's always got such good organization. When she's got something she's covering, she's got it from start to finish, the context for it. So she does a super good job over there. For always, forever, for life, good advice. Says that's why when you find people are jealous and envious of you, you better run like hell. And we have some similar, that's advice that I would say could apply to the Relly and Rocky situation. And what's interesting is in one of the civil actions that Terrell Efron, Relly, has against Rocky, one of them is a defamation case, and Joe Tacopina is also named. But the defamation complaints really come back down to statements by Joe Tacopina, not statements by Rocky, and their statements to media about the criminal matter, where Tacopina was stating, my client is innocent, this is an extortion attempt. It's really not comparable to what's going on here. But it is interesting that Tacopina's on one side on the receiving end as an attorney, as a named defendant in a defamation case, versus what he's writing against Tyrone Blackburn, another attorney here. But to me, the matters underneath seem not comparable. Not comparable. Oh no. Keyshawn says three guarantees in life: death, taxes, and Tyrone Blackburn filing a shakedown lawsuit. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he might want to take a break for a little bit there. That's a good one. Oh no. And then Chloe says, rats, my Starbucks is glitching. The app says all food items unavailable. Send help. So we can't have this big gathering with Homeland Security at the Southern District of New York courthouses today. We can't do it until we get our food order straight. Oh my goodness. We have continuation here through 2024. So May 23rd, 2024, Dixon posts about Cartagena stating, Lil Joey was dating and having sex with a 16-year-old girl named Nikki, aka Shaquita, and had a full-fledged relationship with her for 5 years. And like, bring her in, bring her as a witness. I will be all ears and I'm open to taking in new information. I don't know if I believe it coming from this guy, though. June 15th, 2024, Dixon sent manager a WhatsApp message stating, tell Lil Joey I got something he's afraid of, just when y'all thought he was untouchable. He instructed manager to tell your man this will end it all. September 20th, 2024, Dixon posted a picture of Cartagena, Sean Diddy Combs, and DJ Khaled to his Instagram account stating, hashtag, Fat Joe, Nikki was underage when you flew her across state lines and out the country. October 1st, 2024, Dixon posted to both his Instagram and Threads account. Oh, Threads has entered the building. A post stating, Fat Joe had a full-fledged relationship with Nikki who was underage, and Fat Joe knew Dre was having sex with an underage girl because Joe was the guy telling him, calm down, we going to take care of it. Oh. On December 28th, 2024, Dixon posted to his Instagram account a post accompanying images of Cartagena with the following caption, hashtag, Fat Joe, Milwaukee was scary, the girl wasn't lying. So this seems like it's going back to the Wisconsin story. And quote, this happened in Wisconsin. Joe was being a thirsty N-word and almost got us locked up for sexual assault. Hashtag sexual assault. Almost got us locked up. The caption is accompanied by 4 headlines. It's officially over for Fat Joe. Fat Joe investigated for sexual assault. Fat Joe's ghostwriter TA the legend. What? We just put in a gratuitous compliment here. And Fat Joe, former employee, finally speaks out. C. Dixon falsely alleges that Cartagena cheated him out of money and credit. Beyond the false allegations of pedophilia and sexual assault, Dixon also falsely claimed that Cartagena underpaid him for his services and did not credit him for songs he allegedly wrote for Cartagena. For example, on March 17th, 2025, Dixon published a story to his Instagram account accompanying the headline of a video titled, Fat Joe calls Ganju Roach a liar. The story stated, you have a very long history of stealing and robbing people, and you stole from Pun and his family. This is going way back. You settled in court to pay Liaz Rios $2.3 million, not counting the rest of the money you stole. On March 18th, 2025, Dixon posted to his Instagram Threads account, or back on Threads, hashtag Fat Joe, don't never forget who kept you breathing. I wrote this for your homie. I wrote this for your homie. Dixon also published defamatory statements in an April 13th, 2025 interview on the Off the Books podcast. On the podcast, Dixon falsely alleged that Cartagena underpaid him for his services and did not credit him for songs he allegedly wrote for Cartagena. Dixon publicly published these statements on his social media accounts and in interviews knowing they were false. He plainly intended to humiliate and defame Cartagena, harm his reputation, and coerce him into paying Dixon millions of dollars that Cartagena did not owe. Dixon falsely made heinous posts about Cartagena and his wife. Dixon also attempted to pressure Cartagena by humiliating him and his wife. On January 22nd, 2024, Dixon asked manager to, quote, tell Joe I'm going to live to talk about that threesome his wife had. She's a nasty scumbag. You know that, right? Your boss a sucker. In another Instagram post, Dixon tagged Cartagena's wife and stated, you really don't think this safari grass back 3-inch pink slimy king jerk chicken spider. We've got the spider emojis. They're gonna think it's affiliated with Young Thug. Path ass was cheating. What's a spider path? Was cheating on you so much that never even gave it a shot of being faithful. You don't care that he lived in the whorehouses. You don't care, question mark, question mark, question mark. You know what? I witnessed him getting his ass eaten. That N-word is out of control. 100 emoji. I got something special. Do you want it? No. What? What is it? This is one sentence. Oh, I guess besides the question marks. This is 2 sentences. Dixon even tagged Cartagena in a post that stated, tagged Fat Joe, should I blast one name off that your wife cheated on you with? Or should I wait to go into full detail? 100 emoji. It will hurt you. She's a beast. Is that how we spell sheesh? Is that like sheesh? Or sheesh? That's ridiculous. Sheesh? Dixon made countless other no. This is what I was talking about. The videos. The videos. Oh my god. And Cash Money Cass, I'm not even gonna ask you to do skits on this one. I'm not gonna request it. Let's not do that. But it's super good to see you. Dickless. Dixon made countless other posts attempting to belittle and humiliate Cartagena. Many of these posts superimpose Cartagena's head on another person's body. So here you go, chat. Dixon hired Blackburn to continue. Oh, so now we're getting more with Blackburn in the picture. Let's see when he came in. Dixon hired Blackburn to continue his extortionate scheme. Frustrated by his inability to overcome Cartagena's resolve, Dixon upped the ante by hiring Blackburn and Blackburn Law to shake Cartagena down. But Blackburn is no ordinary lawyer. He is an extortionist masquerading as a lawyer in a cynical ruse to use the court system as both a sword and shield for his unethical conduct. Blackburn's gambit has not gone unnoticed. Just over a year ago, in April 2024, Judge Coates stated that a reasonable inference from Blackburn's pattern of behavior is that he improperly files cases in federal court to garner media attention, embarrass defendants with salacious allegations, and pressure defendants to settle quickly. So we've read this, but indeed, his submissions to this court have been rife with disturbing allegations against the defendants and defense counsel. Blackburn has called defense counsel in this action a disgusting racist for rejecting his preferred mediators. In response to this court's order requiring plaintiff to submit an affidavit regarding the representation made by plaintiff to counsel regarding Fisher's residence, Blackburn filed a wholly inappropriate 53-page paragraph affidavit containing multiple irrelevant and scandalous accusations against Fisher. So we looked at that earlier. We shared it in the chat. It's also over on X if you want to look at the full the full order. And less than a month ago, and this is April 29th that this filing was made. So less than a month ago from then, Judge Atkin issued a warning to Blackburn. This is in the Lil Rod case. Judge Atkin first stated that Blackburn filed, quote, admittedly false claims. Then, after reviewing Blackburn's filings, Judge Atkin concluded that they are, quote, replete with inaccurate statements of law, conclusory accusations, and inappropriate ad hominem attacks on opposing counsel. Blackburn also appears to be suffering from a personal crisis. An investigation report of the East Orange Police Department provides that on April 17th, 2024, Blackburn's girlfriend's best friend alleged that Blackburn was harassing her. Exhibit W, and I have that, so we'll look at that. Blackburn's girlfriend's best friend alleged that Blackburn was harassing her. According to the report, the best friend stated that Blackburn, quote, called her a bitch numerous times, texted her, I hope your mother has a life insurance policy because you are worth more dead than alive, and made various statements to her that she claimed were false. The report states that the best friend is in fear of her safety because she does not know what Mr. Blackburn is capable of. Blackburn's conduct regarding Cartagena appears to be more of the same. He has demonstrated a pattern of unprofessional and erratic behavior that raises significant concerns. Blackburn has repeatedly referenced unrelated cases involving other clients, often in an attempt to intimidate or distract from the issue at hand. In several communications, Blackburn has engaged in name-dropping celebrities seemingly to bolster his own credibility and to exert undue pressure on Cartagena. Most troubling, however, are the numerous emails sent well after business hours, which are characterized by a bizarre stream of consciousness style and contain vague, threatening language. Following the unsuccessful shakedown, by the way, of March 23rd, 2025 letter seeking compensation for songwriting and performing, on April 21st, 2025, Blackburn sent a second letter reasserting Dixon's demand for payment, the second letter. This time, however, Blackburn added outrageous false allegations of misconduct, including purported violations of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act for alleged acts of forced labor and coercive sex trafficking. As a plain indication of its lack of merit, the second letter lacked any specific allegations of purported wrongdoing, failing to specify a single instance in which Cartagena allegedly compelled Dixon to continue working for him or engage in a sex act. And if you go over, Happily Angry Lawyer broke this down. Again, like it's like vague who's doing what. And then it's not Cartagena and Dixon's not impacted. And the other parties that these things supposedly happened to are not, they didn't give statements. They're not part of the filing. It's just, I guess Dixon is claiming a grievance on behalf of somebody else. And that's not really the way this works, you guys. So interested in watching how that plays out. Obviously, a motion to dismiss, I guess in both cases, is going to be worth the read. And then, yeah, so for always, high four, high five. If this is true, this is so sad that all the favorite stars that I came up listening to are going down in a despicable way. And there's been like a lot of, things that come out and seem to have merits. And I'm not sure I reserve the right to change my mind with any new information, but I definitely have my eyebrow raised on this specific case. And it's that Wisconsin article, the idea that this 2010 situation in Wisconsin, yes, it could have surrounded a Fat Joe event, but the complaint was made against Dixon. And then Dixon's taking those headlines that use Fat Joe as a celebrity name to conjure a story over a decade later to imply that Fat Joe was the one the girl complained about. That's crazy. That's crazy. So I don't know how that will shake out, but if that's what Terrence Dixon is doing, it would seem that Tyrone Blackburn didn't vet his client, because he, at the very least, would have read the article about that complaint and seen what Takapina and Chad Siegel are representing here as, no, the complaint was actually against Dixon. So at the very least, it seems like Tyrone wasn't vetting these claims in this case. That's aside from the issue with Brianna Bongalin over in the Combs case, who's saying, and to be fair, she was saying it after she was pressed about something you're claiming couldn't be true according to metadata. She could have just been pointing the finger over at Tyrone Blackburn. But she is saying, I fired my attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, because he said things that were false. So I just don't. And all sympathy to someone that has relied on an attorney that didn't care, didn't do things the right way, and been impacted because their advocate wasn't really an advocate. And that's just kind of where I see this going here for Tyrone Blackburn and several of his cases. Candace says, don't call Tyrone. Also, yes, Factual Lie. Speaking of good advocates here, Factual Lie says, subscribe to Hal. That's Happily Angry Lawyer. Remember, guys, he is doing pro bono work for Moonk. He's got some others that he's going to be covering, and also some filings in some other cases on behalf of others, not just Antonio Sledge. And as always, guys, any mod that has ever wanted to provide their Cash App information, that's always in the description of our live videos. I added Happily Angry Lawyers in there. He's technically a mod. We did it so he could share links to important resources. And I didn't ask him for permission, but he has his Cash App on his own channel. I've added it to the links with the mods in this description. If you want to support the work he's doing pro bono, remember he quit his ritzy lawyerly job and just was so pissed off about what was going on in the YSL case and beyond at this point. The way people are leveraging, overcharging, making mistakes on sentencing, getting people to take pleas, revoking probation, all of these different things. He was so riled up, he became an advocate without any money on the other end waiting for him. So I made the decision before the stream to put his Cash App in my descriptions moving forward. So just know that that's there. And it's free to go over and support his channel, and we can get him going. Chloe says he should have filed in Canton where metadata goes to die. You're right, right. No one ever would have known. JC from the D says this Blackburn guy is a toxic personality and an immoral person. That's the opinion I hold as well. So I'm with you there. And yeah, Trikisha, I think talking about Jim, happily angry lawyer, says he needs to start his own gig with the yellow heart. I agree. We're gonna support. You should do, like coders. They build in public, like they'll code and show you the website live as they're building it or whatever. We could have Jim do getting his Georgia bar license in public. We can study stream with him. That'd be pretty awesome. Definitely here for that, Hal, if you're still here. Where were we? Lack of merit. Didn't specify. Okay, despite Dixon's claims lacking any basis, Blackburn threatened to immediately file an already drafted complaint premised on Dixon's false allegations of forced labor and sex trafficking if Cartagena did not accede to Dixon's demands by April 25th, 2025. This demand gave Cartagena a 4-day window before Dixon would go public with his false allegations. They were in there. Takapina and Siegel and Steve were like, let's get this thing written. On April 22nd, 2025, Blackburn sent an email to Cartagena's counsel, bizarrely threatening to report Cartagena to Homeland Security and file suit without further warning. He also claimed that he had video and other evidence to back up Dixon's claims. Now, this Homeland Security thing is just giving me recall, like to stuff with Diddy, right? Like it just seems, maybe civil attorneys soliciting information, and when appropriate, if there's somebody in danger, I'm not trying to fault the process, but at the beginning of the stream, I talked about, creating a circular, self-supporting argument, because Tyrone Blackburn is arguing to judges, making representations of somebody's guilt or liability because there's other pending actions against somebody. And on the criminal angle, if you can get some criminal action going, that seems to be what Tyrone Blackburn was doing with civil filings. Oh, well, there's a civil accusation. Someone's accusing him in a lawsuit that I filed. Well, if you can get some criminal action stirred up, maybe you can say there's an arrest, there's an investigation, charges. DA's brought charges against, and though there hasn't been an arrest, can we stay this action and wait to see the results of the criminal action? And then maybe the outcome of the criminal matter can substantiate a civil claim later. Right? So very interesting that Blackburn represents a bunch of people in different cases, and we have this Homeland Security invitation, whatever that is, coming up. So on April 23rd, 2025, Cartagena's counsel spoke to Blackburn to discuss Dixon's allegations and ascertain why Blackburn threatened to call Homeland Security. So can you picture Joe? Like, why are you threatening to call Homeland Security? Oh my gosh. And again, by May 1st, don't forget, by May 1st, Tyrone Blackburn is characterizing it as an invitation for us to go sit down together. But by all representations in this complaint, it's a threat of one directional. Tyrone Blackburn's gonna go there and do this against your client if you don't cooperate. Big switch of words. Cartagena's counsel also asked Blackburn for the video evidence, quote evidence, of Dixon's claim, but Blackburn admitted he had never seen some of the video evidence he claims substantiates his client's allegations. You said you vet your clients. You make representations when you file that this is Rule 11 stuff. Here again, I don't think we're vetting our client. Further, Blackburn threatened to submit a sworn statement by one of Cartagena's former managers to, quote, corroborate the claims against Cartagena. On April 25th, 2025, Blackburn sent Cartagena's counsel a third letter containing even more vile and false allegations. Now, okay, so we have a 4-day window that we're saying we're going to file this new thing. And in our initial demand letters more than a month ago, we don't accuse Fat Joe of these sexual and heinous acts, even though Dixon's been posting on them all over Instagram since 2023. But Dixon only wants to send a demand letter about wages and lack of credit for songs he supposedly wrote and didn't get credit for. But then we upped the ante in April and we sent a drafted complaint and say, we're going to file this with all of this stuff in here. We're going to send it to Homeland Security. You've got a few days to consider this. And then when we give you a 4-day window, we're still eagerly following up. If I have leverage over somebody and I give them a deadline to do something, I'm not typically pestering them unless I need them more than they need me to do what I need to do. And in that case, I don't have leverage over them. So it doesn't seem to me that, oh, you have a 4-day window, but did you do it yet? Are you gonna give in to us yet? That kind of seems like you don't really want to file this thing for your sake. But that's my read on it. That's my opinion. On April 25th, 2025, Blackburn sent Cartagena's counsel a third letter containing even more vile and false allegations. So we're upping the ante against Cartagena and demanding that Cartagena pay Dixon a settlement payment of $20 million to release Cartagena from Dixon's bogus claims. The third letter, multiples higher than his previous 2.6 million demand, so around 3 million. The third letter again threatened that Dixon would, quote, initiate litigation immediately if Cartagena failed to accede to Dixon's demands that same day, and would also drag in one of his business partners, Market America. Blackburn's baseless threats were then repeated in a flurry of unhinged emails sent long after the close of business. All right, guys, we got bullet points. April 26th, 2025 at 9:52 p.m., stating that he was going to sue a business affiliated with Cartagena along with business owners. April 27th, 11:36 p.m., refusing to provide names of individuals Blackburn claims were making allegations against Cartagena. April 28th at 11:01 p.m., refusing to provide evidence and baselessly claiming that Cartagena's counsel was conflicted. April 29th, midnight, 12:15, playtime is over. So this is the day that this filing that we're reading is ultimately filed. So Takapina, they got this ready and they sent this through. So they must have had this before they submitted this complaint. An honestly smart move. Blackburn repeated his heinous and false allegations against Cartagena on a call with Cartagena's lawyer on April 28th, 2025, during which he stated that he personally verified the alleged claims and spoke with certain critical witnesses, including one of the alleged minors, and that his $20 million demand was based on other cases which bore little resemblance of the facts herein. Was he looking at his other cases and saying, well, we asked for 20 million in another case, so that's why I'm going to ask you for 20 million here? He's like even using circular logic with his own demands. I can picture that. For example, to inflate his demand, Blackburn referenced how former National League football star Shannon Sharpe's attempt to settle a case for 10 million was turned down. In fact, Blackburn warned, quote, Tony Busby he just filed against Shannon Sharpe last week. And like Shannon Sharpe's career is damn near over now because of that. With that woman who is 19 years old and a model on OnlyFans or whatever it is, right? And he and Shannon Sharpe offered 10 million in mediation, to get rid of it, to try to resolve it. Tony Busby still filed, did not care. You know what? 50 million for a clearly consensual adult relationship. And like Shannon Sharpe got kicked off, and we're spelling his name wrong. every time, but maybe that's Takapina spelling it wrong. He got kicked off ESPN. He lost everything. End quote. On the call, I mean, is it clear that Shannon Sharp lost everything? That still that still hasn't had its hearing yet. Um, and from what I checked a few weeks ago, I don't think Zuniga served um Sharp, but maybe that's happened since. On the call, Blackburn also stated that he emailed Cartagena's lawyer a completely irrelevant audio recording without Dixon's permission. What? Interesting. And Blackburn followed up on his third letter and call with Cartagena's counsel with yet another email to Cartagena's counsel, this time threatening to bring a RICO claim against Cartagena. So we're adding the RICO on what, April 28th? Are we on April 28th? Yeah, we're adding a RICO. We're going to add RICO on April 28th. So a month ago, a month before this was just unpaid wages and credit not given. Then it became statutory rape accusations from someone that is not Dixon himself. And now we're going to add RICO when we said you had 4 days. But now you have to answer today. And now we're going to add RICO and we're going to bring in other names, other people. Just, I don't know, guys. But yeah, so he's following up. He's going to bring a RICO claim against Cartagena, supposedly concerning claims that have nothing to do with Dixon's and Cartagena's relationship or the allegations in Cartagena's demand letters. Adding insult to injury, when Blackburn last brought a RICO claim, Judge Atkin was flabbergasted that Blackburn argued that the defendants were presumed guilty of being a RICO criminal organization because they were subject to a grand jury indictment. This is the Lil Rod case. Judge Atkin observed that any licensed member of the bar would espouse such an absurd understanding of the law is not just disturbing, but shocking. So I wonder, yeah, so if that's the pattern, you try to get a payment out of somebody around like this $3 million price point. When they don't, you sue them, you put the civil filing through for $20 million. This Homeland Security talk, I mean, did Tyrone Blackburn try to go to Homeland Security or whoever he thought might want to prosecute something against Fat Joe? Did we take that action here? And if so, is something going to come of that? Or were they just like, nope, nope? Because it seems like that's the MO in other situations. So I'm wondering if, and based on the emails, if Tyrone Blackburn hasn't already months ago tried to ruffle up a criminal case. Blackburn's, and which I guess, where were they alleging all of this happened? It'd have to be other states, maybe. Blackburn's and Dixon's claims regarding Cartagena, or they'd have to have the actual complaining witness, right? It couldn't be Dixon. It would have to be the actual complaining witness for those, the sex crimes. Blackburn and Dixon's claims regarding Cartagena, both public and in the foregoing correspondence and calls, are false, and both Dixon and Blackburn knew those claims to be false when made. Dixon's and Blackburn's unrelenting efforts to humiliate and threaten Cartagena into an extortionate settlement agreement to avoid the painstaking efforts of publicly dispelling Dixon's lies have compelled Cartagena to file this complaint. So, first cause of action is defamation, and we're going to get some of these tweets that we read earlier. That this is the defamatory stuff, and again, not protected by litigation privilege. And I'd wonder if litigation privilege can, like, they could argue that the truth is a defense, but then they have to, prove why they believe it to, the standard preponderance of the evidence. But since I don't think Dixon can make a claim, or Dixon can't sue directly for statutory rape when this allegedly happened to a different person named Nikki. So even if there was a civil action, yeah, I don't know. This one's going to be I don't know. I can't wait to see the motions to dismiss on both sides. Um, let's see, we've got the Fat Joe one, the picture of Diddy. So we're just reciting all of the Instagram and Threads posts that were discussed earlier, as what gives rise to the cause of action of defamation. He intentionally published these false statements to his publicly accessible social media accounts, which third parties viewed and commented on. So exposure to a different audience. Dixon had neither privilege nor authorization to publish such false statements to third parties. Dixon's statements also constitute defamation per se, because it's involving claims of sex assault and statutory rape. Uh, Such accusations of crimes of moral turpitude tend to injure a person's trade, business, and profession. And then on top of it, he's tagging the business associates. Um, let's see, publicly available and intended to harm. And they are seeking an award of damages in an amount to be proven at trial, but in no event less than 15 million plus interest, an award of exemplary damages, an award of attorney's fees. Second cause, and now we're getting Blackburn in the mix, is intentional infliction of emotional distress. So we're getting some of just Dixon's posts. And more of these posts, the podcast. Dixon escalated his campaign of harassment by sending Cartagena extortionate demand letters through his attorney, Blackburn, threatening to initiate frivolous lawsuits with false accusations of statutory rape, forced labor, and coercive sex trafficking. On March 23rd, 2025, Blackburn sent Cartagena a baseless demand letter alleging that Cartagena underpaid Dixon and denied him credit for his contributions to Cartagena's success under their oral agreement, and demanding retroactive songwriting credit and monetary settlement. Then when he refused, and they're repeating this, right? Because this is to establish this cause of action, right? So we've seen the outline. They've laid out the facts above, the facts that they're alleging. And now this is how this would support a claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress. So they send that, then they up the ante, they add more stuff, and they're demanding payment in return. And in return, they're going to threaten to file a lawsuit alleging the same if Cartagena fails to accede to the demands within 4 days. They up the ante again on April 22nd, with Blackburn emailing Cartagena's counsel, bizarrely threatening to report Cartagena to Homeland Security and file suit without further warning. The next day, we get the calls, more on the Homeland Security. And then Blackburn further admitted that he has never seen some of the videos he claims support the allegations against Cartagena, and threatened to submit a sworn statement by one of Cartagena's former managers to corroborate the claims. They extort for the 20 million. And I guess I shouldn't say extort. They're not alleging that here. They're just saying demanding. This is where they want to include Market America. I mean, this is what it should look like, right? How, intentional infliction of emotional distress, you're doing it. This is how it would cause the distress. These were the actions that the parties were claiming, right? Because we've got to show not just Dixon. We're also bringing this cause of action against Tyrone Blackburn and the law firm. So we've got to show what they're doing as well, and that it's not just Dixon, and because you're the attorney for Dixon, you're somehow liable. No, it's because of Blackburn's participation. And then what do we get after that? Okay, so here they're looking for 15 million plus interest. It says he will suffer additional significant special damages, including loss of business opportunities, harm to his professional reputation, and financial setbacks once Dixon's and Blackburn's allegations become public. So no less, because there's future damages. Let's see. And they're also asking for injunctive relief. So restrain the defendants from engaging in further conduct of the type alleged herein. The award of damages to be proven at trial, the exemplary damages, and award of attorney's fees. So we'll see if we get, any type of restraining order there. And then the prayer for relief. So wherefore, Cartagena respectfully prays for judgment and relief against Terrence Dixon as to both counts, and Tyrone. Oh, we have a misspelling. Blackburn and the TA Blackburn law firm on count two as follows. So damages of 15 million plus interest, no less than 15 million. Entering a preliminary and permanent injunction restraining defendants from engaging in further conduct of the type alleged herein, an award of exemplary damages, an award of attorney's fees, and such other and further relief as this court may deem just, equitable, and proper. And then demand for jury trial for all issues so triable. So there you go. This was what was filed on April 29th.